There is something deeply abnormal happening to the internet computer, and almost nobody except for Bobby O is talking about it. Over extended periods of time, ICP has reportedly shown a long to short liquidation imbalance averaging out to about 10 to 1. Not 2 to 1, not 3 to 1, 10 to 1. There are days when this is 100 to 1, even 1,000 to 1. That means for every wave of forced buying pressure from short liquidations, there are 10 waves of forced selling pressure smashing into the market. And if you understand derivatives, you understand how insane that this actually is, because this is not normal selling. This is forced selling, synthetic pressure. This is leverage warfare. Now let me show you exactly why this matters so much, because in crypto today, roughly 75% of total market volume comes from the derivatives market. Only about 25% comes from actual spot buying and selling demands, meaning that the price movements is no longer driven by real ownership changing hands. It is driven by liquidation mechanics, and ICP appears to be the one that is getting crushed by these mechanics more so than any other coin in cryptocurrency's history. Let me just tell you how brutal that this gets. A trader puts up $1,000 using 100x leverage. That tiny amount suddenly controls a $100,000 position. Now imagine that long position gets liquidated. What happens then is the exchange forcibly executes a $100,000 market sell order into the charts. Not 1,000, 100,000. Meaning 99% of that downward pressure was all synthetic and fake, completely artificial leverage pressure smashing into the real spot market. Now multiply that over and over again across thousands of positions. This is exactly why ICP holders believe the chart is heavily manipulated, because every single rally gets hit with the same liquidation cascades time and time again. Every breakout gets suffocated. Every ounce of momentum gets slammed back down by this forced selling pressure. And I'll tell you what, the numbers get even crazier. Over roughly 15 months, exchange flow data showed around 9 million ICP moved onto the exchanges. It sounds scary, right? Until you compare it to the derivative liquidations, because single liquidation events have reportedly generated up to $12.5 million in forced selling pressure in just one day, and another 3.7 million in just mere hours. You understand what this means? One aggressive liquidation flush can overpower an entire month of spot market selling.
In a 6-month stretch, there can be more real spot buying pressure, meaning that price, if it was only the spot market, price would have gone up over that 6-month stretch. But because there's a derivatives market attached to the spot market, if long traders trade poorly enough and the long to short liquidation ratio is skewed enough, price can still go down over that stretch, because people are being liquidated going long on 100x long positions. That's how stupid this market is. Okay, that's why the ratio of long to short liquidations is so important, because if the long liquidations are being counteracted or negated by the short liquidations, then it's not really having that big of an impact on the overall spot price. But if they're not, and it's mostly just like only long liquidations when the rest of the industry is relatively balanced, it can have a huge negative effect on the spot price. Just look at these charts.
The chart no longer looks like organic supply and demands. It starts looking like a liquidation engine. And then here comes the real question: why would this continue for so long? My answer is very simple: incentives. If large players believe that ICP is long-term infrastructure, they don't want the price to explode early. That will destroy their accumulation opportunity.
So imagine sitting around in 1980 when nobody knew what the internet was. It existed. Nobody had it. Nobody was really using it. And thinking to yourself, I wish I could get a fraction of a penny every time an email got sent, or an HTTP got called up, etc. An FTP got sent. That's where we're at. Start accumulating ICP. And the reason I always try to make the distinction of research versus trade is, if I tell you buy ICP, we all know what's going to happen. The gods of crypto listen to Investor Hour, and it's going to drop $3. Yeah. Buy more. That's what research. That's the confidence of the researchers. I think this is probably my highest conviction research that I've published in a long time.
If institutions openly market bought massive amounts of ICP right now, this very instant, price would go so violently upward that it would never go back down and retail would flood in. The entire narrative would shift overnight. Average entry prices would skyrocket. Accumulation becomes too expensive.
90% of the people that buy stocks don't think of them the right way. They think about something that they hope goes up next week. And they think about the market as something they hope goes up. And if it's down, they feel worse. I feel better.
And you think about?
Pardon me?
And what do you think
I think about what the company's going to be worth 10 or 20 years from now. And I hope it goes down when I buy it because I'll buy more.
But if liquidation pressure keeps the chart psychologically broken, now retail gets exhausted. People like you and I lose conviction. People stop paying attention while larger players can quietly accumulate underneath all this chaos.
The United States is short power, we're short compute, we're short chips, and there are going to be shortages in all three. And memory, four things. I actually believe a new asset class will be buying futures of compute. We just don't have enough compute power right now.
And that is why many believe suppression and accumulation can work together. Not because there's some cartoon villain conspiracy, but because the structure itself creates these incentives naturally. And honestly, when you study the liquidation imbalance, it becomes hard to ignore. Because 10-to-1 long liquidation ratios over extended periods of time are not normal market behavior. That is structural, and that is an asset that is being hammered relentlessly by synthetic forced selling pressure. Meanwhile, underneath all this chaos, the technology keeps building. It gets better and better each passing day. Decentralized compute, on-chain applications, AI integration. The internet infrastructure of the future is being built in real time, and almost nobody knows it. That's the irony.
At the peak of the internet bubble, our stocks, it went from 113 to 6 in less than a year. That whole period is very interesting because the stock is not the company, and the company is not the stock.
If we didn't create the internet computer, somebody else would, right? It's a natural evolution of the internet. You know, the internet started off just providing connectivity, and now it's going to be able to host secure software systems and open internet services too. So we're extending the internet. The technology is available to do this. You know, we're building on top of advanced computer science and cryptography and so on. And if we didn't do it, someone else would do it. So people are really just backing the sort of long-term evolution of the internet.
ICP is potentially the evolution of the internet. I can't understate how big this is.
While everybody stares emotionally at the chart, the underlying system keeps advancing quietly in the background. Now, maybe ICP fails. That's absolutely possible. But if it succeeds, people may eventually realize they were not watching a weak asset collapse. They were watching one of the most aggressively suppressed infrastructure plays in crypto's history. But yeah, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, just a guy giving my own opinion, and I want to see how this plays out in the future. But if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know who you personally think is behind the suppression of ICP's price. I'd love to hear that. And I wish you guys nothing but the best. Until next time.